Hello, everyone. We are here to discuss the my reading wrap for we have 2025. We are going to be talking about this list right here, if I can point the right way. This list right here. I made this because I was like, ooh, I don't want to pick like the favorite books I've had. Um, and then discuss them here on stream or on the video. Now, as you can see right off the bat, I did not get one for December. I was still reading my books into December, so I know I didn't finish a book till then. Um, but we can discuss the other books. So the first book we have in January, which was Iron Flame from Rebecca Yarros. I had started in January the Iron Flame or the Fourth Wing series, and I fell in love with the story of the dragons. And honestly, Iron Flame was my favorite one of the three, just because I liked how it was building up to the climax of the events, and there are other things going on, and like the Fourth Wing gave you the introduction of like, okay, something's gonna happen now, while Iron Flame doesn't really. It kind of continues to build. But I'm still looking forward to the rest of that series until like whenever the next one comes out, because it is just a fun series to figure out, okay, how are the dragons can be a part of this, what's the overall story that we are missing over here, what are the villain that are like the bad guys. It's a very entertaining series for me. The next book we have on in February, which was A Map to Your Soul. This one was actually a book I got as a like learning book for the year, and I actually have it on my shelf, so that's why I'm pulling it out. But this is right here, A Map to Your Soul, using the astrology of fire, earth, water, air to live deeply and fully. This actually, I made a few notes in the margins and did some of the activities in this book. I found it at Five Below, to be honest. I think it was just a Five Below book that I was like, sounds interesting. I'll pay for it and, do it. And it's something that I can see myself coming back to. I could see myself coming back to that book to really see if I'm still thinking the same way, if some of my actions are still more fire-based or water-based, and seeing where I have maybe healed more where it comes to that particular series. So I kept it on my shelf because I was like, hey, why not? This is something that I can come back to, and I really enjoy it. So if you guys are into, I would say if you're into the more astrology side of things, maybe you're trying to learn about your astrology, that book actually does give you like, you have your like normal zodiac signs that are, here's like the zodiac to the element, but instead it takes that just like a step further, and you go into the idea of what are your actions based on? What do you normally act as? To basically, does it represent your water signs in your chart, your fire, your earth, your air, and see if you're more one or the other. So it's a fun book to go through that. The next one was Strings of Fate, which I also have that on my shelf. This is right here, by Frances Woodard. This is my sister's book. It's a poetry book, which, see, like that. Poetry book based on finding your soulmate across the fates of time, through the red string, in a love that delves over many lifetimes. And it's a very like romantic poetry book, but it also deals with the idea of when you're waiting for somebody. So like, let's say you're still waiting on the person to love, but they're still not here yet. I feel that. This is one of those that like does also include that. So that became one of my favorite books in the month of March because, one, it's my sister's. Two, it's poems that I definitely have felt when I have longed for a soulmate and still do not have one yet. It's a wonderful like poetry book for the romantics. The next one in April was The Queen of Nothing. Now I put this on here, but in April, I actually finished the entire Cruel Prince series. I ran through those books so quick. I ended up having to like order the next one and then the next one because I just was so like back to back to back. And I loved that series. It definitely had some moments where I was like, why is it doing this? And then I realized, oh wait, like when, spoiler alert if you have not read this Cruel Prince series, if you don't skip ahead for like, I'd say probably 30 seconds, but skip ahead. But when, and I just lost her name, the main character, she gets banished from the Fae realm. The thing is, she is the queen, technically. So, technically, as the queen, she can return at any time. And that particular moment made me go, oh my gosh, duh. Like, I had the same duh moment that was in the book. And so I also have the series on my shelf too. And it was just because it was a fun, like, oh crap. And then the series of how they continue to power what they have, and then the ones who want more control not getting it. Then in the month of May was Haikyuu, specifically book 6. This one is where they start of course, my favorite character comes in on the cover, Oikawa, but he comes in and you start to see the rivalry between Oikawa and Kageyama. But then you also have the rivalry between Apojosai and then Karasuno. And that really starts the part where those two teams are my favorites. So of course that book becomes a favorite of mine because it's about my two favorite teams. And my favorite characters are coming in, and then I see it literally play out from the anime in the movie. Or like the anime, and seeing it play out in the manga. So that's the fun part of that one. In June, which the next 3 books are actually my top 3 books of the entire 2025. The first one is the month of June, which is Blood Over Brighthaven from Emma Wong. This book, I actually listened to the audiobook on Audible, and I was like, I mostly picked it up because I was like, oh, it sounds interesting. I could listen to it while I'm at work type of thing. And I actually think at that time I was traveling. So I also listened to it on the way while I was traveling. But this book gripped me. I was sitting here like, I wonder how this is going to go. Like, how is she going to be like this high mage? And how is she going to be all this? And then all of a sudden, things shit hit the fan, and you're like, what's going on? What's going on? And then you're like, now what's happening? And by the end of it, I could not predict the ending. I literally, by the end of it, I just stood there and was like, I literally, I think I was at work, and I took my headphones off, just put them on my, desk, and I was just like... And my coworker, who, if, I'm looking at the computer this way, she sits, kind of sideways to me, and she was like, you good over there? And I was like, I finished a book, and the ending was definitely not expected. She goes, well, that does happen, but what was it? And I started talking to her about it. So one of my favorite books, I actually want to get the copy, a personal copy of this book to actually read just physically, and then to also annotate, because it was so much fun to read. And I'd love to pull out the different quotes that are in it, the different styles of languages, what's made me like it just a bit more. That sort of stuff I do want to see. Then in the month of July was another favorite book, which was Dean Koontz's Odd Thomas. This was actually my sister's book, and she recommended it to me to read. And I also fell in love with this because, not specifically because, oh my gosh, it threw me for a loop or, it knocked the socks off. It was because of how it was written and how it described the bad characters, and then how Odd, had to figure out these different things and then coming to realizations about other things. And basically, how does he figure out the bad person who's causing all of the problems that are in the city? I actually bought a couple of other books from the Odd Thomas series because I do want to see if I like them as much as I do this book. And then this is another one that I do see myself getting a copy of, and then also annotating, because I do want to see, like, what can I pull out, what kind of quotes can I do, and just kind of read it more in that methodical sense. The next one, which is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Of course, this is a prequel to The Hunger Games. As you can see, I have annotated the book. And that particular book I loved because the Hunger Games series was my middle school, like, comfort series. Middle school was not my favorite time. It was not the best time for me. But the Hunger Games series was one of the ones that actually, like, hooked me in and made me, like, want to read the next one and the next one. This was also after my Warrior Cats love of that, and then I really think I went Warrior Cats, maybe a couple other books, and then immediately into the Hunger Games. And that became the comfort series. So when the prequels started coming out, I was like, okay, I do need to read these at some point. And last year, I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This was also after I had seen the movie on the plane when I was coming back from being abroad. So I was like, okay, I'm going to read the book, see how it is, see how I like it. And that particular book gave me so much detail that I could see in my head that gave way more, of course, way more than the movie, but gave a lot more, which is a lot of more fun for me, because I wanted my thought process when I was like, the Hunger Games is here, and you have President Snow over everyone. My question's like, why? Why? Like, what's going on in your little head that made you, like, do this? Why? That's what I wanted, and The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes gives it to me. And it really gave me a lot more detail about him that I did not expect. The next book of the series, is The Keeper of Night. This one was a fun book that I ended up finding out of like a $2 haul on Ollie's. And I really liked this book because of how well it gives you the main character is a Shinigami and a Grim Reaper. She's a mix of both. And according to both the Society of the Grim Reapers and the Society of the Shinigamis, she's not supposed to exist. She's supposed to basically be exiled or killed, either way. She's still there, and she's also mastering the powers of both. And the thing is, they don't know. A lot of like the bad characters are like, but we don't want her to exist because she'll become too powerful. She doesn't understand it. Which makes it really interesting when you think about how like different societies are set up, and then if you're not like the people in the society, then you're looked down upon. The Keeper of Night shows that, but it also shows the journey that she goes through to try and find some sort of like other family, because the Grim Reapers don't want her, so let's try to go to the Shinigamis. Okay, let's see if they want her. And it's that kind of journey to that, to see if, okay, do they like her or not. And I actually learned recently that there is a sequel to this book. And I do want to try to read that sequel just to see what the actual answer to the story is, because it did leave off on a cliffhanger. It did leave the idea of, okay, well, what's going to happen to her? And so my question is, well, what's going to happen to her? The next book on our series is in October, which was Crown of Midnight. This is where I started getting into the Throne of Glass series between September and October. This is the reason why December doesn't have a book. I'm still reading Era of Fire, but I've started getting into the Throne of Glass series. A lot of the bigger books, especially books that are 500 plus pages, do take me a lot longer to read, especially with other things that I'm doing, like videos and writing and all the other crafts that I do. Reading takes a lot more time for me. So I haven't finished the Air of Fire. But when I finished Crown of Midnight, there was a lot of tricks and little things I didn't expect that were in this book. And it threw me for a loop and made me go, well, yeah, I want to read the next book. Like, now I got to know what's going to happen. Now I know what's going to happen to Elena. Like, now that I know that she's got, like, more powers, and it's hinted at, but now we're starting to get more answers to it, to the Fae side of things. And now I'm like, okay, so what's happening? And then one of my favorite characters that was in the book, basically she dies in this one. And I was like, what? And I literally was like, no, I liked her. I liked her a lot. But then she goes, and then I was like, well, now I got to see what Elena's going to do, because now, or Aelin's going to do, Elaine, definitely butchered that. Anyway, now I got to know what she's going to do. Then my final book of the favorite books is actually The Love Theoretical, which is from Ali Hazelwood. I read The Love Hypothesis, which I plan to reread it and annotate it as well, because it was another favorite book coming from a STEM girly. I loved The Love Hypothesis, and then let me put it over. I also annotated Love Theoretical. So, another one of my favorite books, because she also hooked in, whoop, I just dropped that on my foot. She hooked in two things for me. A STEM girly falling in love. All right, give that to me. But then she throws in rivals to lovers. That is like one of the tropes that is just like, you got me, girl. So it became one of my favorites in November. And yeah, those are my favorite books of 2025. But then I did a final 3, because knowing me, I cannot pick one. So I did final 3. And the final 3 I picked ended up being Blood Over Brighthaven, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and Aunt Thomas. Specifically because these 3 books are the ones that really made me think through things or try to figure out things or left me in awe. And these are the ones who had more of a lasting impact. And so those are the 3 that left me. What's funny is nowadays, if I'm not recommending my own books that I wrote, if someone's like, oh, I need like a high fantasy book, I'm like, Blood Over Brighthaven. I'm like, read that one. Because it just was so fun. Ballad of Songbirds Snakes, that's one that a lot of people have read. It's popular. But Aunt Thomas is one of the ones that if someone recommended horror or just like supernatural, spooky, I would say Aunt Thomas, because that is one that you don't expect. So that's a fun one too. But I want to thank you guys for watching the favorite books of 2025. And I plan to add some more bookish content while we're around here. I also plan to add some bookish content on my Patreon. So this is where I'm starting to set that up when it comes to streaming and YouTubing. And that will be kind of unveiled in due time. But anyway, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, if you have read any of these books, comment down below. Like, let me know if you've read any of them, or maybe you have a question about one of them and you're like, hey, tell me more. Or even just subscribe to the channel, and then you might get some bookish content, you might get some video games. Who knows? So I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!